One election pledge the Rudd government is still working to implement is its promise to make the internet more family-friendly. The government's push for mandatory filtering of the internet is motivated by a quest to block child pornography. But the internet industry is resisting the move, arguing it will slow the internet service to a crawl. Others fear the filter will amount to the thin end or thin edge of a censorship wedge. Child protection advocates counter that internet providers have a responsibility to end the trade in images of child sexual abuse. Adrian Rochella reports.
The internet has revolutionised the way we communicate, do business and entertain ourselves. But there's a dark side to the cyberspace revolution.
The growth of child pornography on the internet over the years has been dramatic. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of images of children being sexually abused.
There are rules that affect what you see on television.
Unlike the rest of the media, the internet remains largely unregulated. But the Rudd government wants more control, with plans for a compulsory filter between Australian internet users and the rest of the world.
The only places that have mandatory filtering at the moment are Saudi Arabia and China.
The idea that somehow the internet, as another form of communication, should be exempted from all of these social and moral controls, I find bizarre and repugnant.
It's a proposal which has sparked a passionate debate on the final frontier of free speech, as well as a backlash from reluctant internet service providers.
The basic problem with mandatory filtering of the internet in Australia is that it just plain won't work.
Several Western countries, including the UK, France and Canada, have introduced voluntary internet filtering. In Australia, the government wants filtering to be mandatory to block child pornography and other illegal sites.
Filtering everything that goes over the internet, that is simply impractical. It would be horrendously expensive. It's likely to significantly reduce the speeds that people get on the internet.
The government is now asking internet providers to take part in live filtering trials to block 10,000 banned websites. The country's biggest internet provider, Telstra, is yet to announce whether it will participate.
What worries me greatly is that if people give the impression that with mandatory filtering the internet will somehow magically become safe, there's no silver bullet as far as the internet is concerned.
Michael Malone from iiNet says filters are easy to get around and notorious for being inaccurate.
They all suffer from the same problems as any other solution, in that they sometimes block content they shouldn't, and sometimes, of course, they let through things that they shouldn't.
But we love the net, and we want to set it free.
He says there are many ways to exchange information that bypasses the World Wide Web altogether, such as peer-to-peer software connecting computers directly to one another. And as systems analyst Robert Hudson explains, virtual private networks are also immune to filters.
The software for these virtual private networks is available freely on the internet. I load this website up. The address that it gives me will be an address in America.
And why won't the filter at the ISP pick this up?
The traffic between my computer now and the network in America is encrypted and can't be intercepted, it can't be filtered. There's no way to access that data.
Because of the presence of encryption and other sorts of techniques on the internet that make filtering really quite impossible to stop the bad guys, at the end of the day, the only way you actually get them is good old-fashioned conventional policing mechanisms.
The government's plan to clean up the internet includes an extra $50 million for the federal police. A blacklist of 1,300 illegal sites already operates in Australia. The trial of mandatory filters will not only include this list, but will target other illegal material and what the minister calls unwanted content. It's the definition of unwanted that worries internet providers.
This is a slippery slope. What happens next then? Do we remove sites that might be, say, contradictory religious views, or views which might be critical of the Australian Labor Party, for instance, information about homosexuality or abortion? If someone comes up with the idea that I don't like this, is the government then going to add them into the filters as well?
Social commentator Clive Hamilton says the internet should be subjected to the same censorship controls as film, television and print.
I don't see that attempts by government to regulate some extreme and violent sexual content on the internet is going in a democratic society like Australia to lead to attempts at political censorship. I think that's a red herring.
The Communications and Broadband Minister Stephen Conroy declined to be interviewed for this story, but in recent Senate hearings he gave short shrift to concerns over civil liberties.
Illegal material is illegal material. Child pornography is child pornography. I trust you're not suggesting that people should have access to child pornography.
Child welfare advocate Bernadette McMenamin says she's under no illusions about the effectiveness of internet filters.
It will block out some child pornography, but not all. And surely anybody sitting out there in their lounge rooms would think that some is better than none at all.
The industry says mandatory filters are not the answer, and monitoring of the internet should be left to parents.
If you want to keep your children safe on the internet, the only way to achieve that is to actually sit with them while they're on the internet. You wouldn't drop your kids in King's Cross and say, I'll be back in a few hours, see how you go. You would walk with them through King's Cross and make sure that they're safe.
The internet was born out of freedom of speech. Child pornography is absolutely abhorrent. It's unsupportable. But when you start getting into grey areas, I think it's very difficult to consider having governments deciding what people should and shouldn't watch.
Adrian Rochella was that report.